BT-7, the fastest tank of the Red Army in World War II, an analytical essay from a U.S. expert's perspective. Introduction. Among the many tanks of the Second World War, some became legends because of their armor, like the German Tiger, others because of their sheer numbers, like the Soviet T-34. But there is another category of tanks that symbolized bold experimentation, tanks that pushed the limits of speed, mobility, and radical engineering. The Soviet BT-7, often remembered as the fastest tank of the Red Army, belongs squarely to this category. From an American weapons analyst's perspective, the BT-7 is fascinating not because it was the best tank of its time, in fact, by 1941 it was already outdated, but because it represented a unique Soviet approach to armored warfare. It was a machine that reflected Soviet ambition, innovation, and also the limitations of the 1930s. To understand the BT-7 is to understand the prelude to the T-34 and the armored clashes that shaped the Second World War. 1. The origins of the BT series. The BT series did not originate in Moscow or Kharkov, but rather from a surprising source, the United States. In the late 1920s, American designer J. Walter Christie developed a series of high-speed tank prototypes. His Christie suspension system allowed tanks to move far faster than most of their contemporaries, with road speeds exceeding 45 miles per hour, almost unheard of at the time. While the U.S. Army showed little interest, the Soviets were quick to recognize its potential. In 1930, Soviet agents covertly purchased Christie tanks and brought the designs back to the USSR. From these blueprints, the BT, or Bystrokhadny tank, or fast tank family was born. The BT-2 was the first production model, followed by the improved BT-5 and BT-7. Each step refined the design, added more firepower and slightly more armor, but always retained Christie's hallmark, extraordinary speed. By the time the BT-7 was introduced in 1935, it represented the peak of this philosophy. 2. Design and technical features of the BT-7. The BT-7 was a light tank by classification, weighing in about 13.8 tons. What made it special was not its protection. Its armor was thin, only 13 to 22 millimeters, but its mobility. Engine. The BT-7 was fitted with a powerful Mikulin M17T gasoline engine, a Soviet copy of the German BMW VI aircraft engine, producing 500 horsepower. This gave it an exceptional power-to-weight ratio. Speed. On roads, the BT-7 could reach up to 72 kilometers per hour, 45 miles per hour, which was one of the fastest tanks in the world at that time. This is why it earned its reputation as the fastest tank of the Red Army. Suspension. Christie's coil spring suspension allowed for high-speed cross-country performance, something most tanks of the 1930s struggled with. Armament. The BT-7 was armed with a 45mm gun, a weapon that in the mid-1930s was adequate against most enemy tanks. By 1941, however, it was underpowered against the latest German Panzer III and IV. Armor. Thin by any standard. Even heavy machine guns could pose a threat at close range. The BT-7 relied on speed, not armor, for survival. Convertible drive. Early BTs could run on wheels as well as tracks, a quirky feature intended to save track wear. In practice, it was rarely used in combat. From an engineering standpoint, the BT-7 was impressive as a high-speed light tank, but as an American analyst, one can immediately spot its Achilles heel: survivability. The BT-7's gasoline engine was highly flammable, and its thin armor left crews dangerously exposed. 3. Soviet doctrine and the role of speed. Why would the Soviets invest in such a vulnerable tank? The answer lies in Soviet doctrine during the 1930s. The Red Army believed in deep operations, a strategy of penetrating enemy lines with massive armored thrusts, driving deep into the rear to disrupt command, supply, and morale. In such a doctrine, speed was everything. The BT-7 was not meant to slug it out in head-on duels with enemy tanks. It was designed to exploit breakthroughs, rushing forward to encircle, raid, and disrupt. In many ways, the BT-7 anticipated the kind of warfare later made famous by German blitzkrieg. Ironically, the Soviets had the theory first, and the BT-7 was their chosen tool to implement it. 4. Combat performance. At Halkın Gol. The BT-7 saw its first major test against Japanese forces at the Battle of Halkın Gol in Mongolia. Under General Zhukov, Soviet BTs performed aggressive maneuvers, using their speed to outflank Japanese positions. Here, their mobility proved valuable, though losses were still high due to vulnerability to artillery and anti-tank weapons. In Finland, during the Winter War, the BT-7 struggled in the harsh terrain of Finland. Deep snow, forests, and strong Finnish anti-tank tactics revealed the weaknesses of the design. Many BT-7s were lost. The German invasion, 1941. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941, the Red Army still had thousands of BT-series tanks, including BT-7s. Against modern German Panzers, and especially against 50 and 75mm guns, the BT-7 was hopelessly outclassed. Thousands were destroyed in the first months of Operation Barbarossa. Crews often abandoned BT-7s when they broke down or ran out of fuel. Some fought valiantly, but most were wiped out by 1942. 5. Comparison with other tanks of its era. In the mid-1930s, the BT-7 was competitive. Against German Panzer I and II, it was superior. Against early Panzer III, it was roughly equal in firepower, but weaker in armor. Compared to British light tanks, the BT-7 was faster and better armed. Against U.S. designs of the time, like the M2 light tank, the BT-7 held its own. By 1941, however, the BT-7 was obsolete. The German Panzer III with long 50mm gun and Panzer IV with 75mm could destroy BTs at long range, while the BT's 45mm gun struggled to penetrate them. 6. Legacy and influence. Despite its flaws, the BT-7 left an enormous legacy. Soviet engineers learned valuable lessons about mobility. Speed was vital, but it must be balanced with armor and survivability. Suspension. Christie suspension proved so effective that it directly influenced the design of the T-34. Doctrine. The failure of BT-7s in 1941 forced the Red Army to rethink its armor tactics, paving the way for the combined arms doctrine that would win the war. Most importantly, the T-34, arguably the best tank of World War II, was a direct descendant of the BT series. The T-34 kept Christie suspension, upgraded the armor and gun, and corrected the flaws of the BT concept. In this sense, the BT-7 was not a dead end, but a stepping stone to greatness. The BT-7 was the fastest tank of the Red Army, a machine that embodied both Soviet ambition and Soviet vulnerability. It was a tank of the 1930s, impressive in mobility but fragile in combat. By 1941, it was outdated, but its role in shaping the evolution of Soviet armored warfare cannot be overstated. From my perspective as an American weapons expert, the BT-7 is a reminder that innovation often comes with risk. The Soviets gambled on speed and paid a heavy price when faced with modern German firepower. But the lessons of the BT-7 directly inspired the T-34, and in that sense, the little fast tank helped pave the road to Soviet victory.